mission fed.
For over 25 years, the super dentists have made dental visits fun and positive for kids. We've also always provided expert orthodontic care for all ages. Now, we're thrilled to bring our superhero care to teens and adults, offering exceptional dental and orthodontic services for everyone. With 6 convenient San Diego locations, we're here to make you smile. Call or text 1-619-DENTIST or book online today at thesuperdentist.com.
On American Experience, a look at the decades-long struggle for disability rights in America.
We realized that people with disabilities could be a political force.
Change, not charity. The Americans with Disabilities Act on American Experience.
Watch live or stream tonight at 9 on KPBS. You're watching KPBS. Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thank you for joining us. President Donald Trump's administration says it's planning to lay off more than 70,000 Veterans Affairs staff. Critics say such cuts will hurt VA health care and benefits. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer says vets here in San Diego aren't taking the cuts without a fight.
On a recent late afternoon, veterans in San Diego gathered to protest impending cuts to the VA. It's one of several such protests held around the country this month. It's here that I meet Cliff DeWolf, who served 20 years in the Navy. He was wounded in combat and receives disability benefits from the VA.
We need counseling services, we need other services, but they're slashing jobs left and right. That's why I'm here.
He says cuts are already impacting him. Last month, the VA fired almost 1,500 probationary employees.
I've seen people die. I've known people who have committed suicide. I suffered from PTSD, and the counselor that I had, she's no longer available to me.
This month's protests were organized after VA Secretary Doug Collins told veterans in a March 6th video on X to get used to the changes. A U.S. District Court judge issued a preliminary injunction last week requiring the VA to offer fired probationary employees their jobs back. On Monday, the Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to block it. Every Thursday, the Don Diego VFW Hall in Logan Heights opens its doors to the community and serves free breakfast. Post Vice Commander Angel Garcia was cooking when we caught up with him.
Actually do use VA healthcare, tons of concerns about it. Wait times are pretty long now as is, so cutting jobs and laying off people and stuff like that is going to affect us, all of us across the board.
Friday in Oceanside, Democratic Representative Mike Levin held a hearing with veterans and advocates on the cuts. He says Republicans in Congress won't stand up to the administration.
They have effectively ceded control to Elon Musk and to Doge, which I call destruction of government by Elon, because that's what it is.
One of the richest people in the world, Elon Musk, has been empowered by Trump to make the government more efficient. The results so far have been thousands of layoffs, lawsuits, and questionable claims of government savings. The stated goal of the VA is to fire 70,000 to 80,000 people and to bring the department to its 2019 staffing level. This was before the 2022 PACT Act opened VA benefits to millions more veterans, and the agency beefed up staffing to accommodate. Levin sits on the House Appropriations Committee, which helps craft spending legislation. He says no one has yet articulated why these cuts are even needed.
We don't have clear answers because my Republican colleagues will not have hearings like this. They will not have town halls. They will not be accountable and transparent about why they support these moves, because they're afraid, in my view, to cross the president and to cross their biggest donor, Elon Musk, who's been put in charge.
Marine veteran Sarah Check says she relies on the VA, and the move to cut staff left her feeling betrayed.
I know that's not the only way, this way everyone is feeling right now. It's not only me, but a sense of betrayal and a sense of betrayal from our country.
Cech co-chairs the Veteran and Veteran Family Committee in California for the Forward Party. That's the centrist political party started a few years ago by former Democratic presidential candidate and billionaire Andrew Yang. She says veterans from both sides of the aisle are unhappy with what's happening at the VA and that it's an example of the failure of the two parties.
I believe that we're starting to see the breakdown of the two-party system actively before our eyes every day, and there's a problem when Americans, by and large, are saying, not just veterans, but Americans in general, that the political system is causing them stress and anxiety every day in their lives. That's a problem.
VA San Diego provided KPBS with a statement from the department in Washington, D.C., saying it's complying with Trump's executive orders on diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as the court's preliminary injunction on firings. It did not, again, answer questions about impacts locally. We first asked more than 2 weeks ago. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Senior members of the Trump administration are scrambling to figure out how a journalist was added to a group chat discussing U.S. plans for an attack in Yemen. The chat was hosted on the communications app Signal. As Laura Aguirre reports, the nation's top intel chiefs were called before a Senate committee here today.
If this was the case of a military officer or an intelligence officer, and they had this kind of behavior, they would be fired.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratcliffe in the hot seat with several lawmakers after the revelation of a Signal chat group with other top Trump administration officials and Jeffrey Goldberg, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Both Gabbard and Ratcliffe were on the chat, according to Goldberg, but only Ratcliffe confirmed he was there. Goldberg also claims that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth discussed likely classified details of an impending U.S. attack on Houthi rebels in Yemen, which Hegseth denies. As for using an app like Signal to communicate sensitive information,
well, the warmer weather that we've had to start the week is going to start to cool down a little bit closer to where we should be this time of year when we talk about historical averages. But as we head into tomorrow, the big story is really going to be some low clouds and fog that could impact visibility. I'll break all of this down coming up.
And apologies for that technical difficulty. Making right turns on red lights was illegal in the United States for most of the 20th century. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says while drivers are used to the convenience, the maneuver is facing growing scrutiny.
Congress legalized right turn on red a half-century ago, believe it or not, in response to the oil crisis of 1973. The idea was to conserve gasoline by reducing vehicle idling at intersections. But a recent study from several California universities found the gas savings have been negligible. SDSU city planning professor Bruce Appleyard co-authored the study, which also found right turn on red is generally unsafe.
So this is one of the big problems with right turn on red collisions. This is sort of the operational side of it, that the driver is looking left at oncoming traffic and failing to see the pedestrian right in front of them or the cyclist right in front of them.
San Diego is preparing an update to its street design manual with new guidelines for when to prohibit right turn on red, particularly in areas with high pedestrian traffic. Appleyard says that could do more than just prevent collisions. It could also make neighborhoods more walkable.
It's not just about safety, but it's also about comfort and livability for pedestrians and cyclists. So rather than just looking at the safety calculations and the quantitative side of things, look at the qualitative side of things. Look how places are much more comfortable.
The city's new street design manual is expected to go before the city council later this year. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego Unified is considering affordable housing options for its faculty and staff. This evening, the Board of Education is voting on 3 proposals to build affordable housing for at least 10% of its staff over the next decade. One of the proposed sites is at district headquarters in Normal Heights. Others include the Revere Center, the Ballard Parent Center, the Instructional Media Center, and district-owned land on Commercial Street. Altogether, the different sites would provide at least 1,500 units.
If we can't recruit and retain our employees, and if our families can no longer afford to live in San Diego, it obviously directly impacts everything that we're trying to do as a school district. We know that as a school district, we can actually jump in and be a part of this solution.
San Diego Unified told our media partner KGTV that the district can't use bond money to raise teachers' salaries. A representative says it would take huge increases in state funding to raise wages. The cost of college has skyrocketed in the last 30 years. Harvard University recently announced that they'll offer free tuition for students from families making $200,000 or less. Undergraduate tuition was roughly $56,000 this year at Harvard. So why is college so expensive? Jen Sullivan looks at the numbers and what students can do to help cut down the costs.
The cost of college has risen dramatically in the last 3 decades. Inflation and increasing operating costs have caused colleges to charge more. They're also receiving less federal funding.
There's no doubt that college in the U.S. is expensive.
Alex Gailey is an analyst at financial company Bankrate. They recently broke down the cost of tuition plus fees like room and board for this current academic year and estimated the average in-state tuition and room and board at a public four-year college was nearly $25,000 a year. Out-of-state students paid an average of $44,000 a year. A private four-year college costs close to $59,000 a year.
I think people just aren't feeling like maybe the ROI of college degrees is the same as it was a few decades ago.
There are things students can do to lower some of these costs.
One way to immediately cut down the cost of college is being willing to attend a college that is near where you live and living at home.
Consider attending a community college and then transferring to a four-year college. Apply for work-study jobs. Look into financial help like student loans, scholarships, and grants. And choose a degree with a positive return on your investment. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
The Vista Unified School District is expanding its Spanish language immersion program. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas says interest from local families is driving the change.
Es 12 por 2.
In Vanessa Mendoza's math class at Alamosa Park Elementary, her students aren't just learning geometry. They're also practicing Spanish.
Este lado es más grande que este lado. Entonces, ¿dónde lo voy a poner?
This is one of 9 classrooms at the elementary school where students are learning in both English and Spanish.
It helps you understand what other people are saying, and it also, I've read that learning other languages helps you not forget things when you get older, and also that it's just fun.
3 elementary schools and 1 middle school currently offer dual language immersion. The district plans to expand the program to additional grade levels and a second middle school campus next year, and a high school campus in 2 years.
Our families have been very supportive of the program. They don't want this to be a K-5 experience. They want to have this at the middle school level and moving into high school.
Program Director Rafael Olavide says it serves both English speakers looking to learn a second language and students from Spanish-speaking families who want to preserve that skill.
You have families who have moved into the United States, and when they visit their country of origin and a Spanish-speaking country, sometimes the communication is an issue because they have been in a system that has been monolingual, and they have been actually not been able to keep their mother language.
Expanding the program will involve hiring more bilingual teachers. Partnerships with local universities have helped meet the needs so far.
I'm not going to say that, it's been easy, but definitely we have done a very good job with our HR department to promote our district.
No, 24 más 4 no es 10.
Oh, okay. That's where I got Most Alamosa Park students speak English at home. The program started with 1 kindergarten class and 1 first grade class in 2020.
Elise Peterman was one of those first graders.
Starting early definitely helps. So later on, you know more words, and it's easier because your brain is still growing and you can get that into your mind.
Studying subjects like math and science and Spanish can be challenging. Students say the key is being patient with yourself.
Just relax and just go with the flow.
District leaders are looking to recruit more teachers at the California Association of Bilingual Education Conference this week. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
So here is something that you may not know. Some dung beetles are native to California, but many others have been imported to prevent the damage done by cattle farming. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge spoke with an entomologist about their uses and their amazing ability to adapt.
The best-known image of the dung beetle is the one that rolls its ball of dung to a hiding place where it lays its eggs. But these little ones are also dung beetles. Along with the dung ball rollers, there are the dwellers that move into a dung pile and set up housekeeping.
There's also a third group called the tunnelers, and they dig tunnels underneath cow pads and produce little brood chambers in these tunnels. So they're very different types of dung beetles that we can find all across the globe.
Patrick Rohner is a professor in the Department of Ecology, Behavior, and Evolution at UC San Diego. Dung beetles are his specialty, and he says there are over 5,000 different species of them. A dung beetle's occupation is pretty simple, but their ecological role is not always understood. One thing is very clear: for the environment, dung beetles are a great cleanup crew.
For one, they physically remove cow dung from the surface of the soil into the soil, thereby making all of these nutrients accessible to plants and other organisms. But they also aerate the soil because they often produce these tunnels.
Rohner says he became interested in dung beetles as a scientist because there are few creatures that adapt so readily to their environment. Biologists say they have a high level of plasticity. For instance, their level of nutrition determines whether males will grow these big long horns seen on the left that they use for fighting as they compete for mates. Environmental factors can determine their shape and their size.
They can look drastically different even though they are genetically identical. So that is an example where the environment has a really strong impact on the way an organism looks and how it behaves.
There are native California dung beetles, but there are a lot of foreign species that were brought to the U.S. to solve what was perceived to be a shortage of them. Their purpose was to correct the damage cattle farming was doing to land that cows used as pasture.
There are many species that were introduced on purpose by the U.S. Department of Agriculture in the 1960s, and that is because dung beetles are very beneficial for cow pastures. And the USDA on purpose introduced them from other places, including Southern Africa and Europe.
Whether being raised in brood tunnels or getting one of those big dung balls, each beetle egg gets one ball, new beetle larvae are supplied with plenty of poop. And we at the top of the food chain can appreciate their job well done. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Well, some of you might have noticed some low clouds and fog this morning, but that's actually going to spread even further inland come tomorrow morning. So heads up for your morning commute. Might have some visibility impacts, but the big story this week is going to be the temperatures. We started off warmer than we should be this time of year when we talk about historical averages. We're going to start to cool down. A lot of us to right around our historical average. Some of us even 5 or so degrees below that historical average. And the other thing we will break down are the winds. That's going to pick up later this week, Thursday, Friday, especially for our mountain and desert regions. Let's dive into this piece by piece, starting with temperatures for tonight. So Oceanside, we're dropping down to the mid 50s, just a few degrees warmer in San Diego. We're in the 60s for Borrego Springs, low 50s for Mount Laguna. All of us seeing partly cloudy skies. And then, of course, as we head into tomorrow, especially the early morning hours, we'll have more of the low clouds and fog to contend with, especially closer to the coast. But this is going to move a little bit further inland than maybe this morning. Temperatures for tomorrow are in the mid-60s in Oceanside, a little bit warmer in Escondido there, just a degree warmer than Oceanside in San Diego with that 65-degree high. We're at 90 in Borrego Springs. Now let's talk about your extended outlook here on the coast. We're going to mix with sun, clouds, some fog throughout the rest of the week. So don't expect complete sunshine for the rest of the week, but most of these days it won't be too bad as far as the clouds. Temperatures just kind of varying by a few degrees for the next couple of days. We're in the low to mid 50s Wednesday, Thursday. We warm up a few degrees for Friday and Saturday. We ended up in the mid 50s, the cloudiest day on your Sunday. Let's take a look at your inland 5-day outlook here. It's a similar situation as far as the mix of the sun and the clouds. Temperature-wise, we're in the upper 60s, low 70s, just varying by a degree or two from day to day. The mountains, we start out in the 50s Wednesday, Thursday, drop down to the 40s Friday and Saturday, and then start to warm back up once we get to Sunday. Your desert outlook, this is where we have a little bit more variation with those temperatures. We're at 90 Wednesday. We drop down just a few degrees Thursday, but we really see the drop from Thursday to Friday. And then we kind of stay that way Saturday, warm back up to the 80s by the time we get to your Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, Trump intelligence officials testify before Congress. After it was revealed they discussed war plans on a commercial messaging app. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Do you love a book so much that you would recommend it to everyone in San Diego? Well, One Book, One San Diego 2025 nominations are open through April 1st. You can nominate books for adults, teens, kids, or for some Spanish language readers. Submit your pick online at kpbs.org/onebook. And before we get to our last story tonight, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, federal workers have been ordered back into offices only to face shortages of desks, computer monitors, parking, and even toilet paper. And spring break travel season is here. KPBS Midday Edition is talking with the San Diego author of The Smart Woman's Guide to Successful Solo Travel. We're nearing the end of March and Women's History Month, but there is a place where you can learn about the women's movement and fight for equality all year long. Last summer, I went behind the scenes to see how the Women's Museum of California carefully and lovingly cares for historic artifacts at the San Diego History Center in Balboa Park, and I got a look at some of the most precious items in their collection. So this is the new home of the San Diego Women's Museum.
Yeah, we are now a part of the History Center, yeah.
How does that feel? How does it feel to be here?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's fantastic. Because, you know, when you have such wonderful things, all you want to do is be able to share them with people. And the world comes through Balboa Park, as we know. So it's very exciting.
And in fact, you have so many great things to show us.
Yes. The Women's Museum of California's collection is one of the most significant collections of women's history in the country. We're very proud of that. So this banner ended up hanging in the home of a leading San Diego suffragist. It's really one of the jewels of our collection.
It's very exciting. Yes. And it says the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any states on account of sex.
That's right. That's right.
And this is a little booklet on songs and verses for the suffrage movement.
Yes.
That women would sing along to.
Yes, yes, yeah.
That's beautiful.
And similar to that, this here is a compilation of speeches. So these two items are really tools of the trade. Mm-hmm. You know, it's Instagram for the day, you know. This is one of my favorite books. This is How We Won the Vote in California by Selena Solomons.
What does this inscription mean to you?
What it means to me is that when you're fighting for the right thing, never give up. Yeah. You're going to make me tear up, Maya. And I think the bonds of friendship that obviously sustained this movement, and Selena Solomons wrote, likewise, the heart of one who wrote this book. Yeah. This is a postcard of a woman putting a star on the women's suffrage flag. And California was the 6th one to put the star on.
That is a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
This is a publication when California became the 6th state in the Union.
Yes. Hurrah for the 6th state and a free West. Yeah. It really gives one pause, doesn't it?
Yes.
Oregon next.
Oregon next.
Oregon next, yeah. From the fight to gain the vote, to actually voting, to then being elected to office, to being voted for. Here we see Dianne Feinstein, and we see Barbara Boxer, and we see Lynn Shank. Lynn Shank was the first woman from San Diego to be elected to the House of Representatives.
And now you can see the arc of when women had no voice to
exactly
the strongest
to
voices.
the strongest voices. Exactly, exactly. Something from our costume collection. What we have here on the left in the blue is a reproduction of what's called the Bloomers, the Bloomer outfit from Amelia Bloomer, when women were just fighting the right to wear trousers.
This costume essentially was created in protest of wearing skirts and dresses.
Yes, it was. And it's associated with the earliest parts of the suffrage movement going back to the 19th century. So we're sort of bookended here.
Because they can wear pants with these, and so it was let us do what we want kind of message, right?
There's a lot about clothing and freedom that goes on for sure. So let me take you upstairs.
So we're entering into what you call the cage.
Yes, this is where we store our collections. And I'm happy to give you a sneak peek into this area. As you can see, we've got more things than we can fit into this space. We have the whole range of things from everyday wear to the most formal and most special of gowns, like a wedding gown. We've got an extensive collection of purses, handbags, makeup kits and accessories. We recently discovered that we have a Givenchy gown from 1958 that was worn by a woman here in San Diego who was the head of the American Harp Association. This is a soccer ball donated by the Wave, signed by every member of the Wave. This is an example of collecting happening today. This is a history museum, and so we're talking about things in the past, but we're documenting the present for people 20 years from now who will want to see this. In order to imagine ourselves in the future, we need to know what we were before, and that knowing the stories of the women who came before will empower and inspire girls and women to fulfill their passions and their dreams and become the people they're meant to be.
And there you have it. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you. Tonight at 8, explore famous family histories on finding your roots, then the decades-long fight for equality and accessibility, and later explore the rise and fall of Terrorgram. That's tonight on KPBS. Join KPBS for Be My Neighbor Day on Saturday, April 5th on the SDSU campus. Be My Neighbor Day is a free event